Hey everyone, Josh here. So we're back at the CJAA video here. This is my wife's car, so I'm hoping this is the very last video. I think we've got everything sorted that I wanted done to it, except for this last little piece. If you do a little bit of research on these common rails, you're gonna see they've got a few common issues. The CJAA, the cracked DPF and plugged EGR are very common with after treatment issues. This car had that. And then if you have a CKRA, you're gonna run into DEF issues, NOx sensor issues, and then the coolant overheating and basically clogging your heater core and wrecking your oil filter housing. So those can all be solved somewhat easily depending on where you live. Got videos with all those issues. But one issue I haven't ran into yet and is somewhat common online is going to be CP4 failures. The issue, I don't think it's all that common because I've been trying to buy a failed pump and I can't find one. So if you have one, let me know. So I wanted to take it apart, kind of show how it fails, and then I can show how this kit's going to prevent it from destroying everything. Okay, so let's go over what we're trying to accomplish here. So we've got the nice expensive piece of aluminum from Whitbread Performance, which is the CP4 Bypass Kit or Disaster Prevention Kit, whatever you want to call it. So what happens is you've got your pressure fuel, it goes into your CP4, and for whatever reason they decided to feed it into the bottom end where you have your lobe and your little roller with the plunger on there that makes the pressure. So what's going to happen is you're going to get contaminant in there, you're going to get, say, water or aerated fuel, and basically that roller is going to start disintegrating. The lobe might start disintegrating, or the lobe or the roller might turn 90 degrees, and then it's no longer going to roll, it's just going to wear. So that's all fine and dandy, but all that shrapnel goes from the bottom end, goes to the top end on your plunger, where it is pressurized and fed to your fuel rail, your injectors, and then any leak off goes back to your tank unfiltered. So now you've got all that shrapnel back in your tank. Your low pressure pump in the tank picks it up, feeds it to your intermediate pump, which then gets filtered, goes back to your pump, and just continues. So you get junk everywhere. So if your pump fails, you have to replace everything. So a very common upgrade is going to be a CP3 conversion. The issue with that is it's about $1,200 US. And the other issue is depending on the metering valve, you might require a tune. It is what it is. I'm not worried that much to spend $1,200 on a CP3 kit. So that's why I'm going this direction. These CP4s should flow for lots of power, for more than I ever planned on doing with this car at least. So CP3 wasn't worth it for me. Okay, so these are the parts that we've got here. So if you're had a common rail prior to DieselGate, or if you're on TDI Club, and we're kind of doing a bit of research about these, but you're gonna know the word or the name 2 micron, and he had a kit. It was the PureFlow and the ContainFlow. So basically he made that up until DieselGate, and then I think he stopped making them just after all the fixes came out. I don't know if it was because they were all under warranty then and he didn't think he'd be selling many. I'm not sure what the whole idea was there, but he no longer sells it. So this is going to be the next best thing. So this is the Whitbread kit that I've already went over. You can buy this 2 ways. You can buy it with just the block. Price went up this morning or lately when I was doing some research. So this is now 200 and something US, or you can get the whole kit, which comes with fuel hose, the filter, and clamps and T's and stuff you need to basically plug this into your OEM setup. So basically you're gonna T into here to get pressure fuel into your metering valve, and you're also on your return line here, you're going to install the filter that they provide. You're gonna use the stock filter then, but I am going to upgrade that. So we're going to run the CAT 2 micron filters. So this is going to filter pre-pump, and this is going to filter all the return fuel. So if my pump does fail, and this does what it's supposed to do, hopefully all the shrapnel is just going to get caught in the return line, and it should be filtered out here. So the return filter in the Whitbread kit is 10 micron with a magnet ring inside to hopefully catch any fine material. And I believe the stock filter here is about 10 micron as well, whereas these CAT filters are 2 micron, so they should be filtering better. So you're going to need some Amazon filter bases. You're going to need some barbs, some plugs, and then obviously I need the T for the kit. And then my 9 to 5, I work on farm equipment, so it made sense. I've got the filters, I've got bulk fuel hose and the hose clamps. TDIs are just the 5 to 9 part of my job, so I've already got everything here, so it made more sense, save the $100 and get better filters. Okay, so when we're going together here, cleanliness is extremely important. That's kind of the whole reason we're doing this, to make sure we got good clean fuel. So I didn't see any machining chunks or anything like that. This is all nice and clean. So a little O-ring onto that groove there. The big one sits in that groove up here. I might put just a little dab of grease or something on there to hold it there. You're going to want to grab your pressure washer and a can and make sure your metering valve is nice and clean in here before you take this out. You don't want to knock any dust or anything down in there. And then these Amazon fuel bases, same kind of deal. They're pretty simple. So basically you've got your inlet, you can have it on either one. It's just a cross drilled, which gets filtered on the outside of the filter. So I don't know how I'm placing these yet, but we're gonna make room. So you'll put the barb on the one side, plug on the other, and then your filtered fuel, same kind of deal. It's cross drilled, comes up through the center. So you can decide on wherever we place it, you can make it work. So looking at it, I know for sure I can fit one probably right here, basically right where the stock is sitting. I might be able to maybe shimmy them over and fit 2 in there. The other thought I had was put my pre-pump filter here and my return filter back in here, because I've got lots of room and the return line is down there somewhere, so it would be a nice short pass. I really don't know what I'm going to do here yet, so the plan is mark your lines. So we've got pressure from the tank, return to the tank. We have pressure going to your intermediate pump, and then we've got the return one here. So I'll probably take some of these lines off, get this filter housing out of here, and get covered in diesel. So you're going to want to make sure whatever diesel you spill on any rubber or belts, anything that isn't fuel lines, such as your serpentine belt or these coolant lines, you're gonna want to make sure you clean them off, because they can go a little punky after a while. So okay, so I got the plug off the metering valve, just a simple little, just a normal connector. So T20, that. And up it comes. Okay, so with that out, you can really see what we're accomplishing here. It's a really simple idea. So we've got our fuel going into the metering valve from the bottom end right there, and then the fuel going out is on the bottom side of that little passageway. So the metering valve's got a little tiny little filter there, so that's where all that shrapnel is going to get caught, or should have been caught, but then it won't. So this kit, basically with the bottom O-ring and this top O-ring, it's basically blocking that passageway off. So any of the bottom end, basically lube fuel, will just go out your return and back to the tank or back to your filter that you're going to install. So it's really a simple idea. It's just blocking that little hole there and just giving it nice, fresh filtered fuel. So I'm going to put a little piece of paper towel in there. I'm going to clean all this up, so that gets mounted down nice and flat, and you don't have a new O-ring for this, but everything kind of looks half decent, so I'm gonna put it back together. Okay, so we got it all cleaned up. I know I'm committing a bit of a Volkswagen sin here, but we got, I don't know, 10 inches of hose with a gear clamp. So basically we're just gonna set it in there. Try not to disturb dirt and stuff too much, and then okay, so that's gonna hit, so I gotta turn that a little bit, so I'll get that sitting where it needs to be, and then yeah, it just kind of plops in there. Twist it a little bit if you need to be, and then you want to make sure it sits down flat. If it's not down flat, you might have your O-ring pinched in there, so make sure If you don't feel confident setting it on there and sliding it down, use a little bit of grease to hold that O-ring to the aluminum block here. So we got that together now, nice and simple. So next we're gonna put this feed line in. So I think I'm gonna cut this support thingy off, that little rubber heat shrink over it, put the T right about in here. Basically just kind of turn this, set it like that, and just make sure it's away from the connector, away from the other hose. And I think the cover, if you're gonna run the engine cover, it might need trimmed there. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so I just did a test fit with it nice and short here. I think his instructions, like Whitbread's instructions, they had a longer piece that would come outside of the cover, maybe down to here, and then join in lower. Whereas this is all hidden underneath the cover, and it actually kind of rubs a little bit on this bottom edge, which it's all foam. But I might get some of that mesh wire loom to cover this, just to protect it so it doesn't rub through on the cover for some reason. So I'm going to tighten this clamp up, and then the bypass kit itself is done. So then the next part will be the filtering, because even if we do put the 2 micron pre-pump filter, if this pump does fail, it would still pump debris back to the fuel tank. So you're still doing the washing out the fuel tank and the low pressure pump. So if we can just, if for whatever reason, if this pump does fail, if we can just catch it with the filter, and that way in the future I don't have to change the pump and the filter instead of having to wash the tank out. So as far as filters and filter placement, I think these dual cat filters are probably overkill for what we need. The pre-pump, sure, that'll be fine. 2 micron filter better, and it does fit in the OEM spot quite nicely. If we use these 2 bolt holes, we can open them up a little bit, trim that top mounting tab off, and that could fit there, almost look factory. The issue, so now we need to add the second one, so that will be the return filter. That's not going to fit in here. If I maybe had 90-degree fittings off of here, you could maybe fit 2 in, but the issue is going to be, this is 1/2-inch pipe thread, and a lot of times you don't really get to choose where the pipe, if you're using a 90-degree fitting right off of there, you don't always get to choose where the fitting is going to be pointed. So that's kind of the downside of pipe fittings. But my plan is stick the second one back in here. So ideally this return filter probably will never need to be changed until the pump fails, because everything's getting filtered with the same filter going into the pump, so it shouldn't be catching anything else leaving the pump until it grenades. So I think the pre-filter we will change at the normal intervals, but the return filter probably won't need ever to be changed, I guess. So I'm kind of thinking either mounting it right here, or you can kind of fit it in back here, but you're going to need lots of space in this area. Okay, so we got the filter housings. Both are mounted how I like them, and they both can get the filters changed without having to unbolt anything. You just spin them off. So that's bolted in there nice. It's away from everything. And then this one I've got off right now because I don't know what I gotta do back here for hoses, but same kind of thing. This one I just cut the top off, just bolted 2 holes. This one I had to get pretty fancy with, so I had to cut the top off, cut a nice little notch out of there, and then re-drill this hole so it fits in there now. So I got the plugs on the back side of there because obviously I can't fit in there with the hoses. So I'm gonna have to put my barb fittings in here, and up here I'm not too sure what I'm gonna do yet. So as far as which filter is gonna do what, I'm kind of thinking this is going to be my return one, and this is going to be my pre-pump filter. So what I'm kind of thinking is my pressure from the pump, it's just a straight barb coming up, and I'm kind of thinking I can come up here nicely and into here, and then this arrow pointing out, I should go to the auxiliary pump right here. So it just needs a short little loopy guy, and it'll go right into there. So I'm thinking this should be my pressure one. And then as far as return, I have to remake this one anyways. Actually, I might not have to remake it, but I will have to remake the one that goes back to the fitting back there. So that's what I'm kind of thinking right now. I'm going to get my barb fittings installed loosely and kind of see what I think as far as layout, and then we'll kind of go from there. And just like that, it's all plumbed up. So the very first thing I did was get all the fuel lines out of this area, move them out of the way. The coolant line, tweak this a little bit more straight. This was originally more of like a 45. And it originally was on this side of the bracket. I switched it to this side, shortened that a little bit, and it all looks good now. Next part is going to be your pressure line. So the pressure one from the tank comes up into there, and I might have trimmed a little bit off the end of that. And then, so that's going in. I've got plugs coming out. And I think I just used the same length, just made like an S going into the auxiliary pump. Quick and simple. Next part for the return, so coming from the pump and the rail, or the pump and the injectors. So return into the filter, out of the filter. So I made this line just out of bulk hose and this line out of bulk hose, and it ran back and then down into there. So, and then yeah, plug, good as new. The original one for the return was pretty close, but I think it would rub pretty hard on here, especially if you're going to run your original cover. This works with the cover, but this back corner is going to need a little bit of trimming to clear this filter. So you're just gonna keep that in mind, and it makes it a bit of a pain. My local hydraulic shop, they didn't have the 5/16 to 1/2 inch pipe, so I had to get an adapter and then go down to the barb. So you can find these on Amazon. I think it would have been about 25 bucks for all 4 of just straight 5/16 barb to 1/2 inch pipe. That would have cleaned that up a bit, and that would have given you a little bit more wiggle room at the back there yet as well. So up next, we're going to prime it, and then we're going to go take it out for a drive and make sure rail pressure is doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, so if you're familiar with the CJAA, cycling key isn't going to prime those fuel filters, and I installed them dry. So basic settings, go to there, and then fuel pump activation, and then you just hit on. And that should be running everything. Let it run for a while, make sure you get all the air out, and then should be good. So after that, let's see if it starts up. That's not a good start. Besides that extended crank, I should have ran the pumps a little bit longer, I guess, but other than that, it seems to run good. You can kind of hear this pump seems to like it's working harder. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, but yeah, it is what it is. So I'll take it around the block and make sure pressure seems to be looking good, and grab some coffees, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so right up the road here. So group 20 is fuel pressure, so specified and actual. Seems like it's spot on. So when I was doing the comparison between the MR tuning and the Malone, they were usually seeing about 19-20 bar, so I think that's what I saw roughly there. So looks like it's doing what it's supposed to do, so I'll grab some coffees and then we'll go back over final thoughts on this. Okay, so I'm back, everything works good. So my final thoughts on this kit itself: if you're buying the entire kit from him with the return lines and all that and the return filter, it's gonna be a very simple, quick and easy 20-30 minute install. And if the CP4 does fail down the road, it is definitely worth the money. You only have to replace the pump. You're not gonna be doing all the injectors, fuel lines, rail, fuel pumps, all that stuff. Just swap the pump on and go. It's really simple, and I can't see how it's not going to do what it's supposed to do. So it's should be fine. The reason I went this way was I didn't want to spend the $1,200 on a CP3, and I've got used CP4s here. So if this pump does fail for whatever reason, I've got used ones here. That's kind of my thought. As far as the different variations on how to install this kit, if you're gonna, as I said, if you're buying his entire kit, quick, simple, easy. If you want to do the 2 micron pre-pump filter and still use his return inline filter, that should be extremely easy as well. You just put it up in the front corner where the old filter was. Quick and simple. I guess where the return line would have went back into your stock filter and back out of the stock filter, you could just tee in your return inline filter there. Quick and simple. So all you have to do is tee in your pressure from the tank and pressure to the auxiliary pump. Should be simple. The 2 pumps, or the 2 filters, that's a different story. So fitting that second one in there is a kind of a pain, and getting all the lines routed how you want it is a fair bit of work. I was most of the morning, part of the afternoon here doing that. So it takes a bit of time, a bit of finesse to get it to fit in there how you need it to fit, because those cat filters aren't exactly small. I definitely think it's a bit overkill for the TDI, personally. Money saved on buying just the block versus buying the entire kit, paid for all of that stuff and maybe a little bit of my time. So it's it is what it is. If I wasn't making a video of it, I probably would have just bought the entire kit and carried on. So that's my 2 cents on it. But yeah, I think the cat filter should be quick and easy to change down the road, and other than that, I have really no complaints. So this is a very short-term test. I've got like 5 kilometers on it, so it seems to be working good so far. It does introduce more spots for possible leaks, but install it right and you should be fine. So that's going to be the end of this video. So thanks for watching, and hope it helped.